So when we learn object-oriented programming languages, so we have the principles of OOP. So three main principles are like encapsulation, inheritance, and polymorphism. So one more feature what we can say is like abstraction. Okay. So before that, like yesterday we were discussing about the main difference between procedure oriented and object oriented programming language. Okay, because uh, there are two methods of writing a program, that is procedure oriented and object oriented. See, the name itself tells, when I say procedure oriented, that means oriented meaning dependency. So in case of procedure oriented, so it is dependent on the procedure. Here procedure we can consider like a code. Okay, so we will continue. So in case of procedure oriented, we can consider like we have to depend on procedure. The meaning is the main focus will be on the writing the code rather than looking for the data. So here data refers to real world. So when softwares are developed, generally what happens, it should satisfy the requirements of the user. So that means user means nothing but a real world. So it should satisfy the requirement of the data given by the user. Okay, so then we can say it is useful. In both the cases, the intention of developing softwares are like to satisfy the requirements of the user only. But the thing is, when we consider procedure oriented, procedure oriented meaning depending on procedure. Okay, so that means main focus will be on the procedure. Here procedure nothing but we can consider like code. So writing a code is nothing but a procedure. And in case of object oriented, so the name itself tells object oriented, that means depending on the object. Here object refers to real world, so we can consider like data. So the real world means we can consider like a data. So it is dependent on the object, nothing but the data. So how we can differentiate here is, in case of procedure oriented, the main focus will be on writing the code. Okay, we can say the main focus will be on the code rather than the data. In case of object oriented, the main focus will be on the data rather than the code. That doesn't mean that in procedure oriented only code is required and in object oriented only data is required. In both the programming languages type, both are required, data and code, but we have to see what is the main focus. So main focus is on code in case of procedure oriented, main focus is on data in case of object oriented. So in programs, you will come to know how it happens. Okay. Next, coming to the concept of abstraction. Okay. Okay. Abstraction refers to the act of representing essential features without including the background details or explanation. See, generally the word abstraction means, I think you people have heard the meaning of abstract. Abstract means something which is not real. That means by outside we cannot see, and there will be effect from that. So that is the meaning of abstract. Generally, while speaking also we say it is an abstract concept. Abstract concept means what? From outside we cannot see. That means if we want to say what is the physical existence of that, we can say we cannot say exact, but effect will be there. So here abstraction refers to the representing act of representing essential features without including background details or explanation. See, this definition we have to give with respect to real world. In case of object oriented concept, what we do, we will give the definitions and concept with respect to real world, then we will move into the programming world. Okay, example, see, they are given here car. When looked outside, it is just a car, but from inside there are engines, brakes, gear system, and so on. That means whenever you look at the real world object, what happens, by looking at the object only we will not come to know how it works unless and until we study on that. See, for example, if we look at the fan, just for a common man, what we can think like, yes, it rotates, it gives air. But if somebody asks how it works, we cannot say. Just we can say it has wings, it has motor, power supply will be there and all. But how exactly it works, we cannot say. That is nothing but abstraction. One who has manufactured the fan, he can tell, or one who has studied about that devices, he can tell. So that is the meaning of abstraction. Background details, background working, we will not come to know, but from outside we will come to know some features of that object. That is called abstraction. So So the definition says it refers to the act of representing essential features. Essential features means from outside. See, if we take the example fan only, from outside we will come to know number of wings. It has some color. It has some company name. So these things will come to know. But background details we don't know. That means how exactly it works for common man we don't know. Okay. Similarly, for example of car also. So when look from outside is just a car, we can say yes, it moves some kilometers per hour. Like that speed we can tell, color, look we can tell everything. But from inside we cannot tell like how it works and how exactly it works. We cannot tell. Okay. So one who has manufactured he can tell. That is the meaning of abstraction. So abstraction refers to representing some features but not all details. Okay. The data from a traditional process-oriented program, procedure-oriented language, can be transformed by abstraction into its component objects. See, when it comes to the object-oriented programming language, everything we speak in terms of objects. Okay, so each of these objects describes its own behavior. So here we will go somewhat in detail. Okay, that is, in case of encapsulation, so I will tell you how exactly they are writing programs by using object-oriented programming language. Okay, so principles of OOP. Abstraction is also a principle of OOP, but three main principles. What they're telling is encapsulation, inheritance, and polymorphism. Okay, so we'll see what is encapsulation. So encapsulation is the mechanism that binds code and data it manipulates. So here. See, whenever we think of software is nothing but a set of programs. The definition of software is nothing but a set of programs. And when we start writing a programming language, programs, that is set of instructions which we give for the computer to do some work, we have to think about two things, that is data and code. Okay, two things we have to think about it. One is data, another one is code. Okay, here data refers to real world. So I will make it clear. Okay, data refers to real world, whereas code refers to computer world. That means writing a program. So we can say code refers to writing a program. Okay, this is the code. See, when we talk about softwares or programs, these two things we have to keep in mind, data and code. So data refers to real world. Writing a program, that is code, refers to programming world, we can say. That is, it is related to software. Okay. Now, when we come to the object-oriented programming concept, what happens? We have the principle called as encapsulation. Okay. Encapsulation meaning bind code and data together. Okay, the meaning of encapsulation is bind code and data together. Capsulate means binding, wrapping up of, putting together. So two or more things putting together in one box. That is nothing but capsulation. Okay, so here encapsulation meaning two things we are putting together. That is code and data we are putting together. Binding code and data. That concept is called as encapsulation. Okay, because when we write a program, two things we have to keep in mind. One is data, another one is code. Data refers to real world, code refers to writing a program, writing a code, or writing a logic, we can say. So when we put two things together, that is code and data, binding is called as encapsulation. Okay, now we will look at the definition. So encapsulation is a mechanism that binds together code and data it manipulates. In Java, the basis of encapsulation is a class. So in object-oriented programming language, that too in specifically in Java, the basis of encapsulation is a class. See, we have classes and objects. There I will tell you how exactly we can write a class and all. Okay. So here just theoretically they have given the explanation. A class defines the structure and behavior. That is a data and code that will be shared by set of objects. Each object of a given class contains structure and behavior defined by the class. So object is defined as an instance of a class. See here you look at this sentence. The wrapping up of data and methods into a single unit is known as encapsulation. So as I said, when we start writing the programs, that is instructions for a computer to do some task, we can write the instructions, that is programs, either in procedure oriented method or in object oriented method. So when we write an object-oriented method, what we do, we wrap up these two things. That is data and method. Method is nothing but code here. Okay, method is nothing but a code. We bind together code and data into a one unit. So that unit is called as class. So next chapter is classes and objects. So there we will say we will study in detail what is a class and what is an object and all. Here theoretically we see, okay, what is class here means it is a unit where two things will be present, that is data and code. Okay, and when comes to the real world, how we have to understand this data and code is like see when we consider object oriented, we just concentrate on this concept. When we consider object oriented, object refers to real world, because object definition of object is it is a real world thing, whether it is a non-living thing or non-living thing, it is a real world thing. Okay, object refers to real world thing. For a given object, okay, for a given object we have two things. One is data, and see here I will not tell code with respect to real world, I will tell behavior. Okay, with respect to real world I will tell the behavior. So let us try to understand what exactly it is. See, for example, if I consider fan as an object, okay, if we consider fan as an object, okay, what things we can notice is like we can say attributes. Okay, attributes is nothing but the data. When I say data, you should not tell about working. You should tell only about the looking. That is what you see. If we look at the fan, okay, we can see wings, number of wings we can see, and color of the fan we can see. Okay, and then company name of the fan we can see. These things only you should tell. These things you should not tell like it rotates some rotations per minute, some rotations per second. Those things you should not tell. It gives a, those comes under working process. That working process is nothing but the behavior. So there is a difference here. Data refers to attributes of an object. Attributes means what you see that you have to tell. You should not tell working process of the object. You should tell only the things what you see. Wings, color, name of the fan, these things we can say. And when it comes to the code here, code is nothing but we can see behavior. See, generally in English also, when we say behavior means we will say working process, how it functions, how it works. If I say what his behavior is good means his actions are good, functionality is good, like that. So behavior is nothing but code. In programming language, we have to say code. In real world, we will say behavior. Now you can say behavior of the fan is it will rotate. Okay, one property I have taken. Behavior of fan is it is rotate, it will rotate. So this rotate word you should not put in data part. Okay, and this wings color and name you should not put in behavior part, that is code part. Okay, so clearly it is clear now. Data part is what we see, behavior part is how it functions, how it works. So if you put together these two things in one box or in one unit, that is called as encapsulation. Okay, so taking the data and behavior of an object, putting into one unit, okay, putting in one box or one unit, that part is called, that concept is called as encapsulation. This is the general word with respect to real world. In program, for encapsulation, we have the word called as class. We have the concept called as class. Okay. Okay, so the wrapping up of data and methods into a single unit, it is called as class and it is called as encapsulation. Okay, here methods means functions. See, I said the behavior part of an object from the real world is considered as functions in programs. Okay, we have come across functions chapter in C language, C++ language, right? That functions are nothing but the behavior part of an object. Okay, in C programming, we should not say like that because it is procedure oriented. We will not come across object concept at all. But when it comes to C++ and Java, we can say behavior of an object is nothing but the functions of programs. Okay, methods means functions. In C++, we call functions. In Java, we call methods. Only term is different. The rest everything is same. The working of functions in C and C++ is same as the working of methods in Java. In C++, the term is functions. In Java, it is called as methods. Okay. So functionality of functions in C++ and methods is same, only the name changes. Okay. Here I have given the diagram. You can just look at this diagram. So class is nothing but encapsulation. Encapsulation is nothing but putting data and method. Method is nothing but a behavior or a code. Okay. Putting data and method into one box, into one unit. That unit is called as a class. Okay. Now let us remember this much. So when we go to classes and objects, we will come to know how to write a program by using the concept called as class and object. Okay. Next comes the inheritance. Okay. Okay. Inheritance is a process by which objects of one class acquire the properties of objects of another class. See, here only definition is there. You just wait for a minute. So I will show you along with the diagram. Sorry. Okay. Just look at this screen. Actually, this concept I have taken from C++ notes. Okay. You just observe here. So definition of inheritance is one object acquiring the properties of another object. Okay. It's a simple definition. One object acquiring the properties of another object. See, generally in English also, inherit means one particular thing, if it acquires the properties of another thing, that process is called inheritance. Best example is like parents and children. Okay, son or a daughter will acquire the properties of parents. So that is the best example for inheritance. So here they have given the example of food, fruit, apple, red apple. You just observe this diagram. If you consider food as one object, okay, or one meaningful thing in real world, okay, if you consider the fruit comes under the category food only. Again, apple comes under the category fruit, red apple comes under the category apple. So in this way we can say there is an hierarchy here. Okay, hierarchy means there is an inheritance concept. That means fruit will acquire the properties of food, apple will acquire the properties of fruit, red apple will acquire the properties of apple. So indirectly we can say red apple is acquiring the properties of food only. Okay, so this concept is called as inheritance. So now you just remember this much. So in programs we will study in detail. That means one object, if it acquires the properties of another object, that process is called as inheritance. So if you want to give the example with respect to real world, you can give in this way. Okay, because sometimes in interview if they ask the question, sometimes they will not ask a program, just they will give the example with respect to real world. So if you give this much, it's enough. Okay, now if you consider one more example, you just see food, that is we can consider like an object or some meaningful thing in real world. Fruit and vegetables. Okay, so fruit is one classification of food, vegetable is one classification of food. Okay, fruit acquires the properties of food, vegetables also acquires the properties of food. Okay, under fruit we can put these two things, apple and red apple. So this is the concept of inheritance. Okay, one object acquiring the properties of another object. Okay. Okay. So there is one more concept called polymorphism, so which I will explain directly in the program only. Okay. We have inheritance concept, exception handling. There I will explain the meaning of polymorphism. Now let us go with the some practical part. So like taking some example of simple Java program. Okay. Okay. A first simple Java program. Okay. So here in Java, when we start writing the program, if it is a simple program also, just printing a message on the screen, we have to write in the class only. Every code of Java will be present inside the class. Whereas in C program, there is no class concept. In C++, some part of the program we will write outside the class. Some part of the program we will write inside the class. But in Java, all the code should be present inside the class only. Okay. And one more thing about programming languages is, see, if you don't remember the program, it's not a problem. But if we don't understand the program, that is the problem. Because when we do the projects, we come across some thousands of lines of a program. So we need not memorize or we need not remember. But what is the important thing is, we have to understand the program. That's very important, because sometimes what happens, even when I'm doing projects in companies, I used to get the code from the Google. Okay, so I used to copy in my project according to my requirement. I used to change the code. The thing is, if I have understood the code which I got from the Google, that's enough. Similarly here also, let's try to understand each line of the program. So when you look at the Java program, here you see it is not starting from hash include iostream.h or stdio.h as in C language. Okay, there is here also there is a concept of including some files that I will tell you. In packages chapter, we will come across those things. Like in C program and C++, we have written like this, right? Starting of the program, hash include stdio.h. Okay, these are nothing but header files. In Java also it is there, but that concept is packages. Okay, in all the programs it is not necessary. In packages chapter, I will tell you how to write those statements. Okay. In this program, what I have done, I have taken the class. Class is a keyword, so which we got from even like C++ programs only. Class is a keyword. Example is the class name. Okay. Then your program begins with the call to main. See, in C programming language, program execution starts from main. In C++ also, program execution starts from main. In Java, there are, as I said in the yesterday's class, there are three types of Java programming: SC, ME, Standard Edition, Enterprise Edition, Micro Edition or Mobile Edition. So it depends on the type of Java program where we write. So for these particular programs, program execution depends on the main function. It starts from the main function. Okay. So here I have written public static void main string args system.out.print. This is a simple Java program. Okay. Now let us try to understand. Let us all of us try to understand this concept. Okay. Okay. See, when we write the program, first thing is, if you want to save the file, so how we have to save is, you see in which class you have written the main function. Because see, after this class is completed, even I can write one more class. Say class, C should be in small letter because it is a keyword. I can write class A and I can write some code here. Okay, fine. So I have written two classes here. This is complete one program, but I have written two classes. Okay. But in class example, main function is present. Okay. In class A, I have not written main function. So when you are writing two or more classes, you see in which class main function is present. You have to give the file name by that class name. You have to save this entire code by the file name, that is where you have written the main function, in which class you have written the main function. So for this program, you have to name it as example.java, not a.java. And even you cannot name by any other name, that is by any other word. You have to name the file name exactly, which will match with the class name where you have written the main function. Okay, so main function is present in the class example. So this file name becomes example.java. You should not say a.java, or you should not say some other, like you cannot say e.java. Okay, you have to compulsory say example.java. That means class name and file name should match where main function exists. That is one point. Next, the descriptions that follow use the standard Java to SDK software development kit, which is available from Sun Microsystems. So if you want to download Java software, JDK software, you can download from Sun Microsystems website. Okay, if you are using a different Java development environment, then you may need to follow a different procedure for compiling and executing programs. In this case, we should refer to the compiler documentation. That means, see, whenever we download and install the Java softwares, so compiler documentation will be provided. If you look at the compiler documentation, we will come to know how to execute the Java programs. Because if we download Eclipse and install, if we download NetBeans editor and install, those are the IDE present. Okay. So there we should know how to execute the programs. So in first thing I will tell in command prompt how to execute, because those things we should know, which is the compiler, which is the interpreter, those things we should know. Okay. Now entering the program. Okay. Ah. File name should match the class name, because in Java all code must reside in the class. So why file name should match with the class name? Because means in Java all the code will be present inside the class. See, for example, in this program, if I want to write two classes, yes, you can write, but there should be no code outside the class like this. Okay, every code should be present inside the class. Either you can write in the class example or you can write in the class A. If you're writing outside the code means like header files we can write. Still we have not gone through header files. In packages chapter we will come to know. Okay, how to write header files. Okay. So here file name should match with the class name, because in Java all code must reside inside the class. Next, Java is case sensitive. So if file name is example.java and class name is example, then it is invalid. Why? Because see, you just observe here example.java. If this is the file name, okay, E have written in lowercase letter, that is small letter. And if you consider the class name as example, here E is in capital letter, so it is not matching. So even cases also it should match, uppercase, lowercase, okay, small letter, capital letter, that also it should match. So if it is mismatched, then it is invalid. So it will not execute. Program will not execute. You will get an error. Okay. So if you are using lowercase letters, uppercase letters, you should be careful. So exactly it should match file name and class name. So generally in Java language, class name starts with the capital letter. That is the naming convention. Okay, it is not a rule, but it is a naming convention. So class name starts with the capital letter. Okay. Later I will show you the naming convention used for variables, class names, functions, names, and all. Okay. So next, compiling the program. Okay. Okay. So compile means to check the errors and to convert from source code to object code. That is the meaning of compile. To check the errors, to convert from source code to object code. That is source program to object program. Okay. So to compile, execute the compiler, that is Java C. Java C is the name of the compiler used for executing Java programs. Okay, it is called as Java C. Okay, specifying the name of the source file name on the command line as shown below. So this is called as command prompt. So now I will show you. It is called as command prompt. Okay, and this is root directory of the computer, C drive. Okay, root directory. So Java C is the compiler name. So I have to mention compiler name space example.java. Example.java is the file name. Okay, Java C is the compiler name. Example.java is the file name. Okay. Next, output of Java C is not the code that can be directly executed. See, in case of C++, what happens when we press Ctrl F9 with the Turbo C editor, directly we get the output. I think you people have noticed that getting black screen and we'll get the output. But in Java, that will not happen. See, after we write Java C example.java, and if I press enter key, okay, when I press enter key, will not get output. So what happens is it will generate one more file. So after execution of this statement, it will generate one more file. That file is called as .class file. Okay, this file is .java file. Remember, this file is .java file. So we will get one more file. That file will be .class file. So it will be created like this. That is example. Example dot class. In this way, it will be created. Okay, you just try to understand. This is the .java file, and the file created after this statement is executed is .class file. Example dot class. Okay. Then to run the program, we must use the Java interpreter. Okay. So till now, what we have done is we have compiled the program. We have not executed. We didn't run the program. So now to run the program, we must use the Java interpreter. That interpreter name is Java here. Okay, that interpreter name is Java. See, when we use the standard IDE, integrated development environment like NetBeans, Eclipse and all, there we will not come to know, because programs are executed directly. When we use advanced things, some basic things we will not come to know, because they will design like that. Okay, so if we try to understand the basic things, then we have to go step by step. That is through command prompt only. Let us execute some few programs. Later we can go for advanced editors. Okay. So to run the program, we must use the Java interpreter. That Java interpreter name is Java only. Okay, interpreter name is Java, and it is also called as JVM, Java Virtual Machine. Okay, so it comes along with the Java software when we install. To do so, pass the class name example as the command line argument as shown below. Now you just observe this command, how I have written. Java is the interpreter name, example is the class name. See, like example.java, we need not give like example.class here. It is understood because class name is example only, right? So if I just give example, it is understood. It is taking the dot class file only. So here it is taking the dot Java file. Here it is taking the dot class file. So example is the dot class file. Okay. Now we will get the output. This is a simple Java program. So this is the output of the program. Okay, because what we have written in the program, you just see, this is a simple Java program. Within double quotation marks we have written, so that will be displayed on the console. Okay, now I will execute and show you. Wait for a few seconds. So we have the command, we have command called as type example dot Java. See, this is the program. So I have written in the notepad file and I have saved as .java file and I have stored in the folder called as bin. So here you can view that program. If you want to view that program, you can view that program. Or if you want to directly execute that program, you can execute. So if I want to execute the program, so Java C is the compiler here. Java C is the compiler and you have to mention the file name here. Example.java. So Java C is the compiler, example.java is the file name, press enter. So if there are no errors, so yes, it will be displayed in this manner if there are no errors. If there are errors, it will display the errors before moving to the next step, that is execution of the program. Now we have to use the interpreter here. Java is the interpreter. Just mention the class name, that's all. Don't mention file name, example.java, that is the file name. Don't mention it, just mention the class name. Java example is the class name. Enter. Yes, so output is welcome. Here in the Word document, it is a different text, I think. Just a minute. In Word document, it is a simple Java program, but when I have written the program, I have given the word just a welcome. In the system.out.print, I have given welcome, so it is displayed welcome. Okay, you can add any sentence, you can add any meaningful message, it will be displayed. So first step is like I will begin from the first, just in brief. So it will be like this, that is root directory. You change the directory to Java JDK bin. Okay, you just copy that path and paste here, so you'll get that path. Okay, it is changed, the directory is changed. Then so in bin folder you save the file. Okay, what you do, Java C is the compiler name, example.java is the file name. You press enter. If there are no errors, it will move further. So we can take the next step. Next step is Java is the interpreter name, example is the class name. So Java example. So it will be displayed welcome. So I have given the message as welcome. So it is displaying as welcome. Okay. Okay. So actually we have not gone in depth of the program. Just I showed how to execute the program, because still we have many things to deal with this program. So why we have tried public, why we have tried static, why we have tried void and all. Okay. Okay. Before I move to the topics, if you have any doubts, you can ask, because in 1 minute it will reconnect. Okay. You can ask if you have any doubts. You can ask. So after reconnecting, I will continue. Okay.